What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Wrestling Today podcast. I'm the host, George Hernandez, and I'm bringing to you a quick show today. Very few topics, very few things I want to pinpoint that's happening this week in the world of professional wrestling, most notably the WWE. And if you've been here before, you know we mostly talk WWE. We rarely talk about any other company, but with everything that's happened since Saturday, and it seems like a lot is happening both within WWE, TNA, AEW, and so forth. But most notably, this past Saturday, we saw quite a bit of things happen. We saw two returns, or three returns, and two major call ups. Most notably, for the commentating team, Pat McAfee came out at the beginning of the show at the Royal Rumble. And with that, his return to the commentating team comes his new role within WWE as the new commentator alongside Michael Cole for Monday Night Raw. Now, a lot of fans are speculating that he returned mostly because of the Netflix deal that's going to be taking place at the beginning of next year. Raw is going to be moved to Netflix, and I believe they're pulling out everything they can to have a more colorful commentating team that is more interactive, that's more knowledgeable about the product. But it seems that some people were criticizing Pat on his commentating skills. He wasn't really in tune with what was happening and didn't know too much about the current stars that were involved in the match, or in any of the matches. But he's been away for a little bit. He's been doing his ESPN stuff, with college football and his show on that happens on a daily basis. But with his new role, he is going to be flying out all across the country to be on Raw every week. So I don't know how he's going to work that out. I'm sure they've already figured something out. His show takes place in the morning time, early afternoon. And so I'm sure flying to where he needs to be won't be that much of a hassle, especially if they fly him on a private jet or something. But we'll see. But as of now, he's on Raw with Michael Cole. And then alongside of the debuts and call-ups and all that, it appears that Tiffany Stratton was also in the Royal Rumble. She did come out. She had a good showing. But as of right now, it looks like she may be also going to Monday Night Raw. They haven't officially stated it yet, but they are in talks with her about appearing on Raw as her new home show. Speaking of that, of the women, Miss Naomi made her return back to WWE. We all know she left over a year ago alongside Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné, and she wanted to venture out and try her hand at something else, which I believe she had really good success in TNA because that's where she's been for over a year now. She had a good showing. TNA Knockouts champion, had a good winning streak going until Hard to Kill when she lost the title to Jordan Grace. And then we all saw last Thursday she had her last contractually obligated match in TNA. Well, it aired on last Thursday, the match, but it happened before then, which Jordan Grace retained her title. And then that was the last time Naomi was obligated to be with TNA. And she made her debut at number 2 in the Rumble, which the fans reacted quite well. They gave her a standing ovation, the welcome back chants and everything. But it appears that she is heading to SmackDown alongside her husband, Jimmy Uso. Now, I think they mostly put her on Raw for Jimmy. That way the husband and wife can be together, travel together and all that. But mostly I think she'll do well on SmackDown and bring a bigger sense of urgency or some more hype to the women's division because they need something big over there. Right now it's, they got Damage Control, they got Bianca Belair. Not too many big stars over there. But it will be nice to see her jump into the mix, call her shot, and, make a big impact on that women's division. And then we also saw a returning Andrade, who's been out of the WWE for a few years now. He made his return in the men's Royal Rumble. Um, we've seen him in AEW, AAA, just traveling across the country, performing for different promotions. But it is nice to see him back. And they put him on. They're actually putting him on Monday Night Raw. We saw Monday night that him and Adam Pearce were talking. Andrade signed his new contract for Monday Night Raw. So, I mean, that's pretty much where he's going to be. Although his wife is on SmackDown. But she's out with an injury right now, so it really doesn't matter where he's at the moment. She'll probably be backstage quite a bit with him because we saw a video, you know, come up with Charlotte rubbing baby oil on him before his Royal Rumble appearance. But it is nice to see him come back. I would have preferred for him to go to SmackDown to take on Santos Escobar because right now Santos is feuding with LWO and trying to make a name for himself. So to see more lucha libre stars to go over there would be pretty nice to see. Have them mix it up, especially since Escobar is trying to be the dominant lucha libre star in WWE. So I believe him and Andrade should do something down the road. It would be nice to see. Um, but definitely Andrade is a big signing to Monday Night Raw to give more ethnicity to the product. But the last big call up, last big name that I have here is from NXT. Uh, the reason why this is such a big deal is because this person wasn't even supposed to be in the Rumble. That is Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker came up because obviously Brock Lesnar was taken out of the Rumble, and they needed someone that could fit, the role that Brock Lesnar left. And I think they made a good decision with Braun Breaker because the man is, he's strong, he's fast, he's a great athlete all around. And he's not as intimidating in size as Brock Lesnar, but when it comes to being a super athlete, I think Braun Breaker has that in the bag. And of course, the rumor is he's going to go to SmackDown because during the interaction with Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce, before they could discuss anything, Nick Aldis actually got a phone call, and it appears to be Braun Breaker. Now, him going to SmackDown is interesting because, we thought he would end up on Raw. And that's because this is going to go into the interesting topics I got going on today. It's interesting for him to go because we saw him, I believe on X or something, call out the Judgment Day. We obviously saw on Saturday, Braun Breaker was eliminated by Dominic Mysterio. Now this was supposed to be Brock Lesnar's storyline to go up against the Judgment Day, or most notably Dominic Mysterio. He was supposed to be involved in the storyline because everything that Braun did in the Rumble was meant for Brock Lesnar. It was meant for him to go in, have the dominant showing he did, and then ultimately be eliminated by Dominic Mysterio, which would have set up a storyline for them to meet up at the Elimination Chamber. But now it seems that Braun Breaker's taken that storyline and he's calling out the Judgment Day, telling them that he's coming for them. Now this is an interesting storyline for them to give to Braun. A lot of wrestling fans that don't follow NXT don't know too much about him. So I'm going to tell you, the guy is super strong. He's freakishly strong. He is fast, like crazy fast. So does he pose a threat to Judgment Day? And the answer is yes, he does. He does pose a threat to them. They do need to be worried. especially Dominic Mysterio. I think this man could have hurt him. but but if you don't know a little bit about his background, he's actually a second generation star. His father is Rick Steiner, and his uncle is Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner. So crazy strong is obviously in his family. Crazy fast is apparently good genetics. Like the guy is jacked and the guy is fast. So I don't need to repeat that again for the third time, but I do think that it's interesting that they did do this, and I can't wait to see how this folds out. I do expect to see Baron Corbin possibly come up, every so often to help his friend if this storyline is going to be against Judgment Day. Obviously, Judgment Day doesn't play fair, so to even the odds in some kind of way, I do see Baron Corbin coming and helping out his friend to help with the Judgment Day. Another interesting topic, while being interviewed, I believe I was on the Busted Open podcast, Gunther, I know, was on there, and he teased that he would be interested and would like to do a title for title at Mania with Seth Rollins. Now, this is just speculation. No, this is just Gunther talking, but it would be an interesting match to happen because the original plan, again, was for Brock Lesnar versus Gunther at this year's Mania. And it was planned for CM Punk versus Seth Rollins to go against each other at Mania. Now that Brock is not in the picture, and now that CM Punk is obviously injured, it would make sense for these two guys to maybe clash at the show of shows. Now, does it need to be for the title? Title for title? I think for the biggest part, it should be. For me personally, this is just me talking. This should happen because Gunther has been one of the most dominant IC champions in a long time. And Seth has obviously brought a lot of prestige to the title he's carrying, the World Heavyweight Championship. And we all saw the promo he cut on Monday. Talking about it's the workhorse title. It is the title that is more prestige now than the undisputed Universal title, whatever you want to call it, because Roman hasn't really made it relevant in a long time because he doesn't defend it too often. Versus Seth, he's injured because he's been defending it, which I can agree that Seth has brought some relevancy to it, has brought a lot of eyes to this title, and Gunther has done the same because he's so dominant. He's just grown so much because of this title, and he has brought a lot to it. It would make sense for two workhorse titles to be head to head, and we haven't seen this since WrestleMania. I want to say WrestleMania 6, I believe, something like that. Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior, title for title, which we saw Warrior walk out with two titles because at the time he was the reigning IC champion. So if Gunther were to replicate it, it would be interesting to see. But I know a lot of fans would love to see it too. But one person in particular does not want to see that. He says he's not on board with it. And the person I'm talking about is Booker T. He said on his podcast he's not on board with it. And I'm going to quote him. Booker T said, "I'm not into this title for title. It just doesn't make any sense. It just books yourself in a corner. You ain't got as much play as far as with the show. You want everybody to be able to get a piece of the action. If we do something like that, you're gonna book yourself in a corner, just like we did with Roman." I can see why Booker would say that, right? I could see why Booker could think it because it is kind of true. What they did with Roman when Roman had one title, it was cool. It was something to see. And then obviously we had a separate title before Roman took both. When Roman took both and you made him this dominant, unbeatable guy out of, you know, just because you didn't know what to do anymore, you had to create the second title, which now is with Seth Rollins. They booked themselves into a weird corner because it seems like no one can beat Roman. No one, like Roman's been holding the title for what, 1,200 something days by now, or 300. I don't know. He's held it for a while, and but what I think they could do if they did title for title and Gunther walked out with the World Heavyweight title and the IC title is Saturday night, night one of WrestleMania. He wins the World Heavyweight Championship. They could, the following Monday, after he's won, he comes out, cuts a huge promo, and then says, I'm going to vacate the IC title. It's been a wonderful run, but I got the biggest prize now. I got the World Heavyweight title. And he just vacates it and holds one title. Then they can do a tournament for the IC title. You know, guys that have never held it or guys that deserve a shot at it, they can all go for it. And then at Backlash, they have this crowning of a new IC champion, which would give us some wonderful matches for the next few weeks to see who would be for the, be in this number one contendership match. And then it also gives Gunther, another spot in history because he gets the title, he wins it, becomes a unified champion, then vacates, gives someone else the opportunity to go for it against, another opponent that hasn't been dominant. And there's a whole list of guys that could go for this title. And it would make for good TV for the next few weeks and give us a good PLE at Elimination Chamber because it's already going to be shaping up to be a good one, especially since they need to find a number one contender for whatever title isn't going to have a challenger. But this is just all speculation. This is just all what ifs, right? This isn't set on paper. This isn't a confirmed storyline. This is just me as a fan talking. Nothing else. But we're going to move on a little bit here. And we're going to talk about these allegations that seem to be getting a little bit more interesting and seems to be, causing some heat throughout the world of professional wrestling. Now, we just talked about it. Brock Lesnar again. With Brock being taken out the Rumble has caused a lot of plans to change. Him, injuries, all this stuff is changing a bunch of plans. But most notably, it seems that Brock is unlikely to be around the WWE anytime soon. And some are saying that it's likely he doesn't even return to the company. Now, do I agree with this decision? At the moment, yes. Do I believe that these allegations against Brock, Vince, and all that are true? I don't know. I'm not an expert in law, but the evidence is piling up. All these messages, all this he said, she said stuff. It's looking like it's a possibility Brock was involved in a big way. Do I say we blacklist him from the company? Again, I'm not an expert. There's been several stars, back in the day that have been blacklisted and have returned to the company. Most notably, Hulk Hogan, we are celebrating 40 years of Hulk Hogan now. And the man, has just come out with new gear, like new merch and all that. And obviously he was blacklisted for something as well. But to the caliber of this, no. Again, maybe Brock does need to sit down on the sidelines for a while. And we'll have to wait and see if his name clears, but I'm not defending him in any way. again, we just have to wait and see to see what happens with this whole thing that's happening. Um, Again, yeah, we'll wait and see what happens and see if he ever comes back to the company. But if he doesn't, then his send off at SummerSlam is pretty good. Was it SummerSlam? I think he fought Cody Rhodes. At the end, he shook his hand, uh, embraced him, and that's kind of a good send off to go out on. He had a good match and everything, and gave someone the rub. But speaking of the Vince's allegations and Brock Lesnar and all that, this past week or last week, a lawyer named Dmitry Shaknovich appeared on Sportskeeda Unscripted podcast and discussed that the case with McMahon is unlikely to go to trial. And he only said this because 90% of cases usually settle before reaching trial. 90%. That is a good chunk, and I can probably say that this seems likely. Um, it, I don't know how this case came to be. It looks like, from what I've read, I'm not saying that this is for sure, but from what I've read, Vince promised this woman payments of up to $3 million, or a total of $3 million. Promised her a promotion, promised her this and that. He made a payment of $1 million, and then she never got any money after that. Now, I'm not saying this woman is doing this because of money. I'm not. But, I think she's mostly doing this to bring out what has truly happened to her, and she wants Vince McMahon to pay for his actions. And so far, this case has definitely made an impact on Vince McMahon and the wrestling world. We saw him step down. He's no longer part of TKO Holdings WWE at all. I don't know if he's still a shareholder, but he's not on the board. He's not being mentioned. He's pretty much blacklisted. And some saying that he's probably going to be blacklisted in a way that Chris Benoit was blacklisted. Do I agree with this? Again, these are just all allegations, but, if they come out true, then yes. I believe Vince McMahon should be, in a way, blacklisted, not mentioned anymore on TV and anything like that. But it would be kind of hard to do because none of us would be where we're at as far as pro wrestling is concerned without Vince McMahon. I will give the man credit for making the product that he has created. The man is a genius. The man has done a lot for pro wrestling. But as a human being, I am going to question his decisions outside of business. I don't condone his actions. I think he's a piece of crap for doing what he did. And he deserves everything that's going to happen to him. I don't know if charges are going to be brought up. I'm not an expert again. But it's all a waiting game to see what happens with these allegations, this case, and everything like that. But we're going to move on from that. And I am going to discuss things that are happening outside with the WWE in other promotions and other areas of wrestling. Now, Jordynne Grace, the current Knockouts champion, appeared in the WWE's Royal Rumble this past Saturday. And she made quite a bit of stir. And she had a great showing. I'm not going to deny her. I've always, ever since I've seen Jordynne Grace perform in TNA, the way she's evolved her character has come up. She has got quite a bit of following on her. And when she made her appearance, that crowd was popping. That crowd was live. That crowd was going crazy. I was going crazy. There's a possibility that there's film out there of me going crazy for it. But she has definitely brought up some possibilities maybe in the future that could happen. And most notably, other stars are taking notice of her too. One in particular, well, one superstar has already said. Natalia said that she would be willing to compete against Jordan Grace in a TNA ring. Now, Natalia is a well rounded athlete. She's a great competitor. And to give a shout out to Jordan Grace that way, in that way, is quite a blessing. Would I like to see the match? Yes. Would I want to see the match? Yes. Should it happen in TNA? Yes. Would it be good for TNA? Yes. And it would be good for WWE. If they were to start doing interpromotional matches like TNA wrestlers in WWE, WWE wrestlers in TNA. Did I say TNA? I meant TNA. If they had, matches on each other's programming, have certain stars go over there and their stars come over here, then that would be fantastic. WWE and TNA working together would be a dream come true. We've seen it twice already. Mickie James, Jordan Grace. Both women had great appearances. Both women did big things in the Rumble. But I think Jordan Grace is a bigger talk because, she has a lot to prove. She has a lot in the tank. When Mickie did it, it was like, okay, James is just coming back home for a little bit. Because we all saw her make her name in WWE, and Jordan Grace has never stepped into a WWE ring. So think about it. The possibility of matches is like crazy of what could happen with Jordan Grace. And most notably, because I already mentioned Natalia called her out. But Jordan Grace has actually extended an invitation to Bianca Belair to go to TNA and challenge for the TNA Knockouts title. She was actually on a podcast with Steve Fall, and she expressed her enthusiasm for the idea of maybe doing a match with her, because she said this: of course, anytime she wants to come over and challenge for the belt, I would love to wrestle her. Jordan Grace said that about Bianca Belair. And we saw them have a moment in the Rumble with ultimately Bianca Belair eliminating Jordan Grace. I ain't gonna lie to you. One on one, I would love to see this woman tear the house down. And it should happen in TNA. Because TNA, being rebranded back to its original name, needs everything they can to get back up to where they were at one point. Not saying that, they're not getting there, because they are on their own, but having names like Bianca, Jordan Grace, Natalia, Jade Cargill, like all these endless women go jumping over there to just challenge Jordan Grace would put a lot of eyes on that product. And it would give WWE more credibility, saying that, hey, they're not the only ones. Like, they're pretty much recognizing other companies, saying, we see you, we respect you. And that's something WWE needs right now, is to take the eyes off the negative and make it into a positive. Like, for a long time, they've dogged the competition. They've never recognized anybody else. The fact they've recognized TNA twice already is a stepping stone for them to go forward from what the past was. Because let's face it, Vince McMahon never really worked with anybody else unless he needed something. Like ECW stars, he would use some of them and then take them from their promotions. But again, this is just speculation. This is just people talking. There's no confirmation if this will ever happen. But I would love to see it. And I know a lot of other fans would too. Now we're going to move on to All Elite Wrestling. Tonight on Dynamite, it appears that Jon Moxley versus Jeff Hardy for the first time ever. I ain't gonna lie. Don't know what kind of match it's going to be, but John Moxley versus Jeff Hardy. Sounds interesting. It sounds like something a lot of fans would love to see. It sounds like
AEW.
definitely trying to give the fans more interesting matches. They've done a lot of firsts. They've done a lot of insane type matches, and John versus Jeff would be interesting. Depending on which Jeff Hardy we get. Jeff Hardy definitely hasn't been showing, a lot of his old self lately. He's been kind of messing up a little bit, but with his style of wrestling and all the years he's been competing, it's no doubt that he might be showing a little bit of wear and tear and some age. But I think if Jeff just, went and took a little bit more care of himself, took a break and, recovered from some injuries, gotten back in better shape, he would have spectacular matches because the man is not that old and he can still go in the ring if he wanted to. John Moxley obviously is a beast. Love to see him wrestle. But again, his style of wrestling is a little bit crazy sometimes. But him versus Jeff is going to be a must-see tonight on AEW Wrestling. Now, the last piece of business I want to go over is obviously, something I whipped up a little bit. Apparently, I didn't whip it up, but I found this and I thought it was interesting. Samoa Joe says that he would love to give Sting a title shot. And I'm just going to assume this is just from the amount of respect Joe has for Sting, especially for how long he's been in this business. And while he was talking with What Culture Wrestling, he said 100% would always give Stinger a shot at the World Championship, But when you talk about Sting's career in a whole, I think the iconic figures in professional wrestling. Hold up, I messed that up. when you talk about Stinger's career in a whole, I think there are iconic. It's a commonly used term. Really, when you dip into your head and you think the iconic figures in professional wrestling, Sting, I mean, top 4, maybe even higher than that. He is kind of the embodiment of a lot of wrestling fans' best memories. Yes, Sting has obviously been around wrestling for a very long time. He was obviously in the old WCW until it went out of business. And then he went on to TNA for a long time where he had a lot of iconic memories. And then, of course, he went on to WWE for a short stint. And now he's been in AEW, which now he's doing his final tour of matches. And I believe he may be going for the tag team titles in AEW. I'm not really sure. I have to double check that. But Sting has been around forever, man. He has been maintained, his health. He has maintained his sanity. He has definitely done a lot for the business. And, this is from a guy that never really wanted to be a wrestler, but somehow fell into it. And it worked out. He is now one of the most iconic wrestlers. Would I have loved to see him a bit longer in WWE? Yeah. Would I have loved to see him have more iconic matches in that company? Yes, I do. But it worked out for him in the end. He wasn't really meant to be a WWE superstar. He was just meant to be a wrestling star. And that's what he's accomplished. He's been in, 4 major companies: WCW, WWE, TNA, now AEW. It's just a shame we never got to see, him versus Taker. I mean, that would have been an iconic match if it happened 10, 15 years ago. But things work out the way they do. It is what it is. But I'm glad to see that we're going to get this final tour from him. And, he's going to go out on his own terms, especially at his age. But that's all I got for today, guys. I don't have any more. If you haven't done so, please follow me on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. You'll find me a lot more on TikTok, and I'm trying to work more on YouTube now. And of course, you can find my podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and a lot of the other big podcast platforms. I am going to try to do more episodes every week, at least 2 to 3. Um, this one is the second one this year, and I hope you guys are enjoying them so far. But please, if you haven't done so, like and follow on any of the platforms you see me at. Until next time, guys, you stay safe and peace.